One says there was an ideological split between NYERERE model of a unified Africa and NKRUMAHs. If we simply had open borders and a visa where ethnic groups were split, wouldn't NKRUMAHs model make more sense? Lengthy, but it comes with two attachments. So what I'll do is I'll share the screen. The first one is taking us to Twitter, and it's taking us to Wodemaya on Twitter. The caption says, how to jump from Kenya to Tanzania without a passport. How to jump from Kenya to Tanzania without a passport. And then there's a laughing emoji. It seems like it's not a thread. So I'll play the video. It's a minute long. I'll play it twice, and then we will discuss it.
Let me show you one of the craziest things I've ever seen across my travels in Africa. Come closer. This is international boundary, no entry into Tanzania. I want to break this protocol for the first time. Ha! Habari yako? Hey! Uzuri sana. I went to Tanzania without a passport. No visa needed. And it's super crazy. We are on Masai Mara, and where I am standing in Masai Mara. Welcome to Serengeti. This is crazy. Woo! Back to Mara. You know what? It's about time we break down these borders and put Africa together. Who created these borders? Let me know in the comment section. Let's take a photo. Let me show you one of the craziest things I've ever seen across my travels in Africa. Come closer. This is international boundary, no entry into Tanzania. I want to break this protocol for the first time. Ha! Habari yako? Hey! Uzuri sana. I went to Tanzania without a passport, no visa needed. And it's super crazy. We are on Masai Mara, and where I am standing is Masai Mara. When I cross, welcome to Serengeti. This is crazy. Woo! Back to Mara. You know what? It's about time we break down these borders and put Africa together. Who created these borders? Let me know in the comment section. Let's take a photo.
All right, that's Wodemaya. Shout out to Trigger Happy 262 Plus in the chat. Thanks for coming through. The second attachment to this Shoot the Breeze topic is a YouTube video. We're going to play it from a specific... Hold on a second. We're going to play it from a specific time point. So sit back. We'll watch the video, and then we'll have a discussion on all of it. Let me see.
Yeah. So we just stopped by in a community where everyone who lives in here, apparently they are descendants of Ghana. So at the end of the day, it means that everyone who is here speaks the Ghana language. It is quite interesting, man. So I guess I found Ghana in Cote d'Ivoire. He's an Ivorian, and it's his first time here.
My first time here.
Really? See, next is Obiala Wahabia Kupiana. Obiala Wahabia Kupiana. Your father. Village of Ghana. Oh, okay. In Bisano. Then I just say, we have a war. What's the tree?
Nigeria,
I mean, where? Wow.
Before Corona, I used to travel like
Where Ghana do? Where Ghana do? Fantini, Martin Fantino. Ah. Maybe talk about it. Yeah. Short port. Okay, my man can't control. Maybe short port. Remember Buffy short port. Or from our point. I was so far. Or Boba. Can you believe it?
you feel more at home in my country than myself. That's amazing.
He's actually the same tribe as me.
Oh, okay.
We are actually from the same region.
Wow.
Can you believe it?
Amazing.
Whoa. Hello. I just say, hey, I want to Matipa. Matidas, I want to. Hey, betcha, man, betcha. Like Ghana, I've already. Ghana, oh, aha. Oh, Uniba. Now, but now this is here. But now, how long?
Almost 20-something years.
Hey! 20-something years. Benjamin. 20-something years. In China, Ivorian. Bonsoir. Hey, bonjour, eh? Eka French.
But your friend in the
Nkokwe. I'm a Gasapana, Eka Wadi.
Okay, so I had no fun to follow dogs and fun to
When you know, Fantano Walker. Naturally, Obialo to have the iron Fantino.
Okay, when I am fun to farm, that's the Jafla.
Oh, okay.
I will be on the phone, anything I will fulfill.
You're been more Hadiana.
Okay, I don't want me down to say, in your way, interview no business.
This one. I saw looking at Sana. And that's it. When I check in, hey, Radinyami. In the Chelsea, I check on it. Then check out the India check. And I also did check it as my phone.
My phone was that check. Amy, that check a moment.
When in John, no, let's turn our check in.
Maybe I know.
To tell you, I'll be a check on with you.
Hey, food on here.
Fufuna Kakuana.
Hey, I had the
I don't know. If I'm to funny, one for Kakun down grow. If I'm to funny hunter for. When I did a measure Mukromini. Okay. And to follow a fan. Oh, so I want. This is quite interesting, man. Like, I'm in the land of Ivory Coast and I'm speaking my dialect. Like, I'm not even speaking Tree, I'm speaking Fanti. You know, I'm a Fanti guy, so I feel so much at home than anyone else in here. I say, how about Norokoro? Hey, also it's slow. I don't know. I catch no man.
Catch him.
French no crowd.
Yeah, we met some kakanka.
I need a natural mix of price. Bonsoir.
Ça va?
Ça va très bien.
Ouais, ça va très bien.
See, that's all I know. I guess there, almost money mine. And
I know I
teach you some more words.
not today. I had what's on one French or Fantina or Walker.
But be more French nowadays.
Wow. No, one passport no is I got a passport and then Ivory Coast passport.
But only the minimum.
We'll be so that and I'll be so that I got it down there. I bought it.
The Macadamia Ghana, New York.
I got it. Once. There be about powder day, I don't quite. Man, call. There be about powder, I don't quite.
Only knowledge.
I go, baby. I have a powder now, one double. I have a powder. Huh? Powder, very powder. Want to hold hard. Oh, I did. Uncle Canada. Uncle Canada. Naturally, I have from Cassidra. Hey, that's a French. Hey, the picture, man. I'm into. Huh? Mommy, I want a man. And you know, I have phone on our arena. When you know, the for you. This is interesting. Like everyone here speaks fancy or Zuma. This is incredible, man. And you know, like the way they even build their houses is exactly the same way that the Nzemas of God. I mean, what am I even saying? They're just the same people. We're just the same people that were divided by the colonial border. And at the end of the day, we see ourselves as I'm an Ivorian, I'm a Ghanaian, oh my goodness. Like, listen, I don't know what to tell you guys. It's about time every African out there know that Africa is just a village. Africa is just a village to the extent that when you cross the border, you meet your own people, and they don't even, how do I say this? Like, hey, nah, oh wow, is that a flag?
Yeah.
All right. I found that video interesting. If you guys want to watch all of it, you can just look it up right there. I found it interesting. I would have liked to have played all of it, but I realized it might be too long for some. Africa is a village. Africa is a village. You know, I was thinking about that the other day. We would sit up and say, "Oh man, the thing is that they divide and conquer," and yet we sit with the continent divided into these countries and borders, and not realizing that that's how they're able to conquer you, right? As the prompt postulates, the prompt says, should we stop number one? There was an ideological split between NYERERE's model of a unified Africa and NKRUMAHs. If we simply had open borders and a visa where ethnic groups were split, wouldn't NKRUMAHs model make more sense, right? Let's hear from Carl on this one. Carl, what did you see in the video, and what's your response to the actual prompt?
Well, from what I can see, it lets me know that Africa is one. And it just further reinforces my belief that the colonial borders that were put in place at the Berlin Conference need to be eradicated, because those borders were created merely to exploit the continent. They weren't put in there for African people's benefit. They were meant to divide the people. You have two different ethnic groups, two different tribes living on one side of the border. So these colonial borders that were in place were merely meant to facilitate the exploitation of Africa's resources. And I think that when African countries, were able to gain their independence from colonial powers, I think it was a mistake to leave these colonial borders where they were. And this has been the cause of a lot of issues, and it's very intentional by the colonial powers. They want to keep Africa divided so that way they can continue to steal from them and keep them subservient to them. So when looking at this video, it just kind of lets me know that these borders are just, lines on a map. They don't really exist in the real world. I think that, we see that everywhere. So I believe that I think Africa definitely needs open borders, or such to where there's the unhindered movement across the continent. So that way we can, unite Africa, because that unity needs to be of paramount importance. As we can see every day, this is, Africa uniting is the Europeans' biggest fear. So I think the collaboration of African nations and working together. Uh, Now I'm not too familiar with NYERERE and NKRUMAHs differences, um, but I think that any model that allows African people to, you know, cooperate and build with other Africans of the same ethnicity in different countries, I think should be supported, and that needs to be pushed to the forefront. We need to stop having these ridiculous tribal differences, even amongst the diaspora. I feel like we need to identify more as Africans than whatever nation state we belong to. I think that's the source of our true power. All right, and I'll leave it there. Thanks, Koku.
Thank you, Black Steel. I think it's also necessary to look at that video, the tweet video, where Wody is kind of mockingly crossing from Tanzania to Kenya back and forth. There's no white man standing there stopping you from moving back and forth. So what am I saying? You guys have the capability to erase those borders, man. You have that capability to erase those borders. And just so people are on the same page about NYERERE, who joined two countries to form Tanzania, NYERERE was hoping to unite Africa by region. And we talked about this before, Oni and I, on my platform. We talked about it in NKRUMAH sabotage of that. But NKRUMAH was more so talking about, uniting along tribes, which will cross country borders, etc. Trigger Happy has some thoughts. I'll read his thoughts in a few. Let me first hear Buana's initial thoughts. Go ahead, Buana.
Yeah, so I don't believe in a borderless Africa. And if I was to take the best of NYERERE's thoughts in terms of regionalism, and if I was to take NKRUMAH's vision of the whole tribal aspect of bringing tribes together and creating nation states out of that particular scenario, where you have, just because they extend, in large numbers across the colonial borders, I would use regionalism with the inclusion of tribe. And I'm going to use tribe this week, even though I have had to apologize for using it last week, because Wodamai himself referred to his tribe several times in this video. So, confidence get mad at me last week, but this week he himself used it. So sometimes one Cornell African being offended by it, sometimes one Cornell African just fine with it. But I would say that I would use the best of the two ideas and I would fuse these ideas together. I don't believe in a borderless Africa. For one reason is that Africa, when it first was divided and separated by the colonialists, that's one time period. But when you fast forward that to 2023, you have some other considerations going on, because you have people with very nefarious intent going to different countries to do different kinds of things. So you want to be able to protect your borders and know who's coming in and know who's going out. That is a consideration that's necessary, because Africa itself, you have a lot of internal enemies. People who benefit from the chaos want that chaos to be maintained. So they send these little militia groups all over Africa to start mess, because they ensure that they're going to benefit from the chaos. So I believe that there should be considerations of borders, because you need to know who's coming in and who's going out. Also, you have external enemies, people coming from an outside. Some of these people look just like me and you, and they posing as whoever. So I think that these things need to be considered. So this whole idea of a borderless Africa, I think that at this particular time, I don't think that the African society is ready for that yet. Regionalism, yes, because you have such close proximity, as Wodamaya was suggesting. He is finding his people just across, just very close to one another. So if we living in the same region, of course we should have some kind of regionalism going on. But even within that regionalism, you need to protect that, because people coming from the outside, coming from Egypt and all over the continent, they moving around for different kinds of regions, not just trade, not just relationship, but they moving around Africa with the intent to create conflict. So I think that you should protect your borders in that sense until you could create some kind of cohesiveness on a continental scale. But as it speaks right now, Africa does not necessarily have one voice. Everyone in Africa don't speak the same kind of language. And when I say that, not just in the context of a similar lexicon or whatever, but the ideology, that exists within the minds of some Africans is completely different. So that is going to create another kind of confusion. So until you are able to create some cohesiveness on a continental level, I think that you should protect what is working. You know what I mean? I think you should protect what is working first until you could create some kind of continuity and cohesion among the people of that entire continent. Because remember, it's 1.3 billion people, not really with the same particular views and mindset. And it's going to create chaos when you introduce a functional society with dysfunctional people or people with nefarious intent. So I think that these kinds of things need to be protected. What is working needs to be protected. What is not working, you can't spread it like a disease around Africa, because you're going to create more confusion that's already there. But that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm going to read Trigger Happy's comments, particularly towards you in these last 4 comments. But I'll say that is it really working? That's the question. Is it really? I mean, look at Nigeria, for example. Is it really working? But
yes, Nigeria. Sorry for cutting in, Koku. But you explained my problem. Nigeria is dysfunctional. Botswana is not. Liberia is dysfunctional. Rwanda is not. So when you start mixing and mingling, just like I'll give you a closer example. Now we have some of our brothers who come from certain places. The way we govern, and in terms of how we look at all law and order and how things work. Some people, when they come in, they get introduced here. They don't necessarily have the same mindset. They live a little bit differently. So now needs to be some adjustment made. They need to ameliorate themselves with the society, because if you let them function as they did in the countries and where it was coming from, you can create chaos in your society. You understand? So you need some cohesion. You need some assimilation before that actually happens. This is what I believe, because on a practical level, I've seen it. And you've seen it too, Koku. We could get into it, but I ain't trying to ruffle no feathers.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I will say this to what you're saying, though, because I don't think you're wrong in this sense. We can't just impose this idea tomorrow. So yeah, you're right. Now, and I think these ideas are our targets for the future. And I think you gotta decide a course of action, or actions actually, that will get you to this targeted place. So I don't think this is a let's do away with the stuff today and start this tomorrow. But I do think there should be some considerations when I look at some of the places that have these tribal problems which lead to failed states. I do think that there's something about, a tribe or ethnic group or what have you, that they do things a certain way, and that they should be in positions where their reality looks like how it's historically been, right? Right now, we live in this white man's reality, right? It'll be nice for Africans, and not just Africa as a whole, but the specific parts of Africa in terms of people groups and stuff like that, to live in a reality of their choosing. So you're right. You can't do this tomorrow. Can't do it next year. This is going to be a long process towards these things. And furthermore, I think these conversations should happen because I think we should investigate all options. We should investigate all options. But speaking of that, I want to ask you guys a question. I'll ask a question, then I'm going to read Trigger Happy's thoughts, and then we'll come back to your answer. If Africa was to adopt Nkrumah's model, right, how does the diasporans fit into that, do you think? I mentioned in the chat while the video was playing, the second video, that a group of Bahamian people not too long ago went to Ghana and reached out with the Ahanta people, actually. I can't remember what became of that. Maybe Buana might be familiar. But I thought that was promising. I thought that was a good thing to do. So how do you integrate? Because if you go to a tribal thing, how do you view the diasporans? That's my question to you two guys. But let me read Trigger Happy's comments first, and then I'll come back and we'll close out this topic. So in the chat, Trigger Happy 262 Plus said to Buana, just because a continental says it doesn't mean much. Continental Africans also call themselves Bantus and Nilotes. And those are categories made by Nazis. He says saying a group is a tribe is weird because these are whole ethnic groups or nations. Obadali Kamban mentioned this, but they have kings, we have chiefs. We have to interrogate all concepts. He said regionalism also fuels tribalism because many regions feel as though they are distinct from another region, and that's a problem. Also, Africans already move around as immigrants already. Lastly, he says, by your argument, Buana, if we are going by the infrastructure argument, we aren't ready for regionalism either. The argument isn't about now. This is mostly the plan of the long term. Jonelle said hello on the way in too. So hi to Joe. Right? Lastly, Trigger Happy 262 Plus says, in my opinion, the diaspora should be granted citizenship as an option, but diasporan states, Caribbean, should be incorporated into a Pan-African state. Also, orientation is important to integrate into Africa. Yeah, that's interesting. When Gaston Up used to be around here, he used to talk about the tribe and how if you want to get through to continental Africans, you really got to get through to them on a tribe type level. So that's interesting. Anyway, to the two gentlemen on the panel, to that question that I asked, that Trigger just responded to, Black Steel, do you have a thought on that?
Well, I think that diasporans should be offered the right of return, similar to how the Israel, the settler colonial Israel offers to Jewish people. I think that that definitely should be an option. And I'm sorry, what was your other question, Coco?
It was mostly about the diasporans. I don't think I asked another question, but you could comment anything. Trigger Happy.
Oh yeah. I definitely think all members of the diaspora should have the right of return. In those Caribbean, I mean, to me, any type of Pan-Africanism, if you want to include the Caribbean islands, those that are majority Black, if you want to include them in this federation, I think that would work good. Give people the right to go back and forth. I think something similar to how it's done in the European Union would be feasible, because you have these different European nations, and these people go back and forth. They don't need passports. They just work together. They have a similar currency. I don't think we should emulate the European too much, but I do think that that type of freedom across borders, uh, I think it is definitely something we need to embrace.
Yeah, so let me do my best. I don't know if Black Steel was finished.
I think
I'm
so.
done. Go ahead. I'm done.
Okay, so I don't know if regionalism would lead to tribal conflict, but what I would say is that if I was to think about someplace like Texas, now Texas is a odd state because Texas is one of the states in America that was trying to succeed from the Union. But eventually, they accepted the fact that they was a part of the Federated States of America, even though they got their own thing going on there. So, if you was to apply that to the separate tribal groups, that larger tribal groups that exist on the continent itself, yes, you would have the Fantis and the Shantis and the different tribal nations that exist, but I don't necessarily think that that would automatically spell out into tribalism. I can't make that kind of leap. I think that that's a leap that you would have to see that. What I mean, you would have to see that really to find out if that would actually happen. I don't know necessarily know if that's gonna in fact occur. If we was to be left alone and unfettered, and if we was to be given our own choices of where we would want to live as tribal groups, and we was to cut out our own specific territories and areas, I don't necessarily, maybe it might as well, but I don't necessarily know that as a fact. Um, the second question in terms of the us in the Western Hemisphere, what I would say is we should be given a carte blanche, special consideration if we was to want to return back to the continent of Africa, in particular West African states or West African tribal groups, because ethnically we have many percentages of all of them anyways. If you was to do a DNA test, many of us could claim many of these tribal groups who now exist in the different territories in West Africa. So
Absolutely.
I can't be denied from a particular area or region if a percentage of myself is I'm a part of that specific group. So I think that we should be able to have our own decision of where we would want to particularly settle, or among whom we would want to settle after going back there. If the decision is to either integrate with the tribal group or create something for ourselves there. But I think that we should have a carte blanche opportunity, carte blanche to decide to go wherever in West Africa where we decide to, because we are the best of all of those people together. We are the best of all of those groups. So that's what I would say about that particular question. You know.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that, Buana. Uh, real quick, Buana, did you hear about that connection that was made with the Ahanta people? Did you
Never
know
heard
about
about
that?
it. Never heard about it. No, never heard about it. No.
Oh
Where
yeah,
is
yeah,
it on YouTube?
yeah. I think you can find it on YouTube. I want to say I want to say I posted it one time, but yeah, you should be able to find it on
Okay,
YouTube.
I'll check it
Yeah,
out.
yeah. All right. Good conversation there. If there's no last words, we should probably move on to the next topic.
I don't have any last
Uh,
words about this topic, Koku, but I just want to say there was a shooting today in Jacksonville, Florida. A white
oh, really?
supremacist, yeah, a white supremacist walked into a Dollar General and shot three people. He had a AK-47. He had a bulletproof vest. I got some family who stay in Jacksonville, but I just want to remember those people in our thoughts, because this war against us is never ending.
That Black Seal, that crazy lady, that crazy, she don't know what she did. The governor for Alaska, Sarah Palin. She is going on a public platform talking about civil war. And she doesn't understand that she is lighting a fuse that she will not be able to control. She needs to be very careful with her words. Very careful.
Appreciate that. I didn't know. D Web is out there too. D Web is out there too. So hopefully he's okay out there. Let's keep all those people in our thoughts for sure. Shoot the breeze.